Hello, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest show here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Now, following our nil-nil draw against Chelsea last Sunday, we've got another Sunday game, and this one is up against Brighton Hove Albion. The Brighton Hove Albion that finished in the Europa League spots under Roberto De Zerbi last season. Also, the Brighton side who played their first European game ever against AEK Athens on Thursday night. Unfortunately, it was a defeat for the Seagulls. Now, for this show, I do have a special guest, and returning to Up the Cherries in all departments, it is a pleasure to welcome on Damien Hills. Welcome back to the show, Damien. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, all good, all good. I'm slightly jealous of you guys because you're going on this European tour.
Yep.
And of course, you played on Thursday night against AEK Athens. It wasn't the result you wanted, but still, how much of an achievement is that for Brighton?
I mean, honestly, like if you just said to the me that used to watch the club at Withdean that I was going to get to watch Brighton on Thursday nights and have the privilege of travelling to places like Marseille, I would not have believed you.
It's a amazing story because, of course, I remember the Withdean. I've been at the Withdean. It's a ground that was well, it's an athletics track, isn't it? And
Yep.
after the Goldstone Ground closed down, the club was in that period of transition. There was always that talk of Fulmer, wasn't there? But
Yeah.
um, what a trajectory the club have been on, especially even since stepping foot in the Premier League, because we played each other quite early on, didn't we? In a game that we actually won.
Yep.
So, do give us the well, make us even more jealous. Thursday night. Firstly, what was that atmosphere like? Because I've seen some videos from Luke Links, and who's a good friend of the channel, but he the video on his channel was just amazing. The atmosphere, the build up. Unfortunately, it was raining, but at the same time, in your own words, give us that atmosphere.
I mean, it was a very strange atmosphere at first because as you're coming down and you first see the stadium, you're like, is this real? There's that sort of disbelief of, I am here after all that time. But then once you get in there and the songs start flowing in the concourse, it just honestly felt like a dream had come true. Like the weight had finally been lifted of people like Gus Poyet, for example, saying we'd hit the ceiling.
Mm. Well, that is, what's even more amazing is, that Gus Poyet was a good manager for Brighton, but, that he thought there was a ceiling. Roberto De Zerbi, Graham Potter before him kind of, took that analogy out because he did a good job. Um,
Mhm.
and I think we'll come back to the game in Europe on Thursday night, but there's this thing in Brighton which you know, once a manager leaves, say for example Graham Potter, there's somebody there to replace him, and it boils down to the players as well. And you look at the great players that Brighton have had sold. Quite a few of them have gone to Chelsea, but
Yeah.
sold them. For big amounts of money, and then there seems to be this replacement just ready to go.
I mean, as you said, there was Caicedo, there was McAllister. There's been several, hasn't there?
Yeah.
I think next off the production line, you'll be looking at Mitoma, maybe Ferguson. I'm sure you're nervous about Evan Ferguson tomorrow.
Yeah, I tell you what, Evan Ferguson is a good player, and
Hmm.
already looks dangerous. And Matoma had a fantastic game against us, didn't he? Back was it May?
I
Not
believe
May. It
so.
was March,
April,
wasn't
yeah.
it? April, March. Yeah, it's such a long time ago now, but I
Somewhere.
remember. Yeah, I remember us talking about it. Of course, it wasn't May, but I'm sure you're probably right with April. It was the start of it, wasn't it? And it was an evening match. But um, yeah, Matoma had a fantastic game that day. I remember him kind of leaving Adam Smith in his wake. And, really, really good performance from Brighton. But let's go back to that game on Thursday, because you did lose the game.
Hmm.
You were unlucky.
Hmm.
You know, there was opportunities where you could have won it, but at the same time, I was quite surprised by AAK Athens and how decent they were and what sort of challenge they put up to Brighton. Because honestly, I thought you would win. What did you make of that game?
Honestly, like as you said, I was, let's say, skeptical about Athens. I didn't know a lot about them. I don't
Hmm.
know a lot about Greek football. I know a few players that are in the national team because of obviously it being international. That's about it. So I was thinking this should be a walkover. I mean, to use the phrase Farmers League, I was thinking we will walk this, 3 points on the board, get a point in Marseille, we're halfway there.
Hmm.
Sadly, reality said no.
But, it showed how far Brighton had gone.
Oh,
Um,
without a doubt.
and, it was a good performance. It was a good
Hmm.
performance. I know that the result wasn't there, but I think that really leads into my next question. So De Zerbi, we did give him loads of plaudits actually back when we played at Dean Court last season. And to be honest, he deserves all those plaudits for what he's done at Brighton. And look at this start that you're going through as well. We'll touch on that. But considering you've played on Thursday night, what does De Zerbi do now, considering there's not that much of a turnaround?
I mean, we've got a couple of injuries. I mean, obviously, as you know, Ferguson missed Thursday night because of
Hmm.
illness, somebody said. So I'm not sure what will happen with regards to him, whether he will be fit. Dunk may not be risked again because he might still have the injury that he's got. We've also got Gross potentially out injured as well.
Hmm.
So it might be a case of put any players that are fit out there and let some of the youngsters on the bench.
Do you think De Zerbi will rotate though, considering that there isn't that much of a turnaround? And do you feel that he'll
I don't
bring?
see that much changing. I see the goalkeeper maybe changing and Verbruggen will start because he
Hmm.
hasn't had a start in a couple of games.
Yeah.
Maybe he starts. A Dringer might come in on the wing. They could be the only real changes, and obviously, if Ferguson's fit, he will come back into starting lineup. They would be the only changes I could see.
I guess it's still early on in the season, and let's be fair, Brighton have got off to an excellent start. You know,
Yeah,
it's it's just led on from last season. Let's be honest, it's just carried on. Some teams, and dare I say it, Newcastle. At the start of this season have hit a little bit of a buffer. I think they'll get back there, but Brighton have just continued the work, and they do it quietly as well. Um, the start of this season, what have you made of it so far? Because of course you beat Man United last time round.
I mean, that was a fantastic away day. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Like, we just went to Old Trafford and we just outplayed them. It
Mm,
wasn't a case of we just got the result, just everything was coming off. Every pass, every touch, every little flick was just working perfectly. And obviously, that's credit to De Zerbi, but also credit to the players for adapting to his quick tempo football that keep the ball but keep it moving, basically. It's not boring possession football. So I
mhm.
think that is one of the big attributes to this start, but also just the phenomenal form of certain players. I mean, Pascal Gross, I'm a very big fan of him, but
Yeah.
he doesn't get a lot of the plaudits he deserves, does he?
No, he's a quality player. To be honest, I can't think of a Brighton player that is poor. Um, you look at who Brighton bring in as well. And well, let's be honest, James Milner, coming into
Quality signing.
Brighton as well. And I know he's 37 years old, but he looks after himself and he brings something to the football club.
Yep.
So I'm just looking at the other results as well. And okay, Brighton against Luton and Brighton against Wolves, you would say, okay, a 4-1 wins in both of those, but you've beaten those two teams convincingly.
Hmm.
But also Newcastle, a
Yeah.
3-1 win at home against Newcastle. And let's be fair, Newcastle have still got tons of quality, but you're just beating these teams for fun. You know,
Mhm.
4-1 against Luton, 4-1 against Wolves, 2-3-1 wins. Okay, yeah, the West Ham 3-1 defeat, but
Yeah, let's not mention that one.
yeah, but that is an outstanding start, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. And as you said, the margins of those victories as well, that's testament to how well the players have applied the philosophy that's been given to them. And as you said, tremendous start. And let's just see if it can continue.
Who do you think, from the playing squad are the people that have really made the difference in those performances? Because you've got Matoma, Fatty, of course, Evan Ferguson's been mentioned as well.
Mhm.
Incensio, he scored against us, of course. That was his first goal, wasn't it, for Brighton
I
against Bournemouth?
believe so, yeah.
Yeah, he's only a youngster as well. How old is he? Is he 18, 19?
18, 19, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so there's so much quality in this side, but who would you say are really the standout players that have really impacted these games?
Obviously, I've got to give a shout out to Lewis Dunk, captain, leader,
Yeah,
legend. Like, honestly, he does so much work. And obviously, you saw what a big miss he was on Thursday night. You said you watched that game, you saw.
yeah, yeah.
Obviously, Van Heck has surprised a lot of people. He's come good very, very quickly. But then
Mm,
I said you can't put too much pressure on a young person this early. Ferguson, as we mentioned earlier, he's just a beast. The
yep,
Irish Haaland, as some of us call him.
yeah,
There's just, to be honest, it's a team effort, mate. There's no standout star that you think, oh, if they have a bad game, we're done.
mm,
Because you know that somebody else will pick up that mantle and go with it.
yeah. And I feel that as well with Brighton. There isn't any players that you would say probably stand out over others. We did speak about Moises Caicedo and what he brought to the side, and of course Mitoma. I think he's a fantastic player. Ferguson, Fatty as well. I think he's looks good quality prospect. I thought Incenzio was really good when you come down here last season as well when he come on. Um, so there's tons of quality over this side. The big question for me is because you keep bringing through this quality, how concerned are you that not just Chelsea, but other teams will come in and take these players off you if you're too successful?
This is going to sound arrogant, and I don't mean it to. I'm not concerned at all because we've got Tony Bloom, who's an incredible owner. I believe
Mm,
I've spoke to you about him before and how much I
yeah,
admire what he's done and stuff like that. He's an incredible owner. Our board are amazing. Shout out to our chief executive, Paul Barber, one of the nicest people in football. I'm like very satisfied that my club are in safe hands.
yeah.
And that even if people did come in for our players, our manager, whatever, I think those people will get us back on the right track. Yeah, there might be a few bumps along the road, but I reckon they'd get us on the right track again.
They've done it time and time again, haven't they? Let's be fair.
I mean, look at the Graham Potter scenario. He
Yeah.
took every member of staff basically with him.
Mm,
He gutted the playing squad, didn't he, in effect?
yeah.
Cucurella and all that as well. So that just shows that these people that are in the background that don't get a shout out, that's why I just want to praise them very quickly and say how amazing they all are. They've done so much and done so much right, which is the important thing.
And De Zerbi himself, he just deserves so much credit. I know we spoke about him before, and I can't give him enough praise. This man, because he goes away around about his job in just such a nice way.
Hmm.
He's he's one of these managers that isn't arrogant. He's one of
Exactly.
these managers that just is. I think he's a little bit of the Howe mold, where you know he doesn't really want to shout and sing about his achievements, but people are noticing what he's doing. Um, and how long do you think you could keep him at Brighton? Considering there's going to be suitors out there now, isn't there?
Of course there is. I think, honestly, we will keep him at Brighton as long as we sustain this trajectory that we're on currently, because I believe he likes the project, he likes the city, he likes the fans, all the important off the field factors, if you like.
Mm,
My worry would be a couple of things. It would be if a top job in Italy came up, that would be my worry. If City came calling when Guardiola eventually leaves, because obviously that man can't go on forever.
hmm
And obviously, if the Italian national team need a coach, I could see that being the one that would draw him away. But they're the only three areas of concern.
Do you, or does anybody really know, his method to success on the pitch? Because there seems to be that fast attacking football, that everybody seems to, and it's a little bit like what Iriola, I think, is trying to do here, you know,
Hmm.
pressing from the front, making sure that we stay on the front foot. Would you say that that's fair to make that comparison of just Brighton are just a lot further along than where Bournemouth are at this moment in time?
I can see where he's trying to go with the style for yourselves, but whether he's got the same delivery of it as a coach of De Zerbi's caliber, that
Mm.
would be my only question.
He did a great job at Rayo Vallecano, but of course De Zerbi is quite a thing to transition from La Liga to the Premier League. And I know La Liga is a very, very good league, but it's a league that is filled with three, four top teams. So you got
Hmm.
Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Villarreal. The rest are all very, very much beatable. He's beaten, the top teams in that league, but I feel that transitioning your style to what De Zerbi has brought into Brighton, and I think Brighton were in a better position as well because
Hmm.
Graham Potter left the club in a better position. I think that's why Brighton are so far on. Do you feel that De Zerbi's style, is similar to what Iriola is trying to do?
Oh, 100%. It's about controlling the game, but
Mm,
also being fast and exciting. It's not possession for possession's sake. It's can we move the ball? Can we do something with it? Let's not just stand on the ball. Let's look and see can we flick one down the channel or can we sometimes go over the top? Because I don't know if you've noticed, I know you do watch the odd bit of Brighton.
yeah.
If we can't go short like we want to, we do go over the top. We're not scared to.
Mm,
It's about being able to switch that mentality very quickly.
yeah. And of course, we did find that. Well, Adam Smith found that in the game back in March, April, whenever it was. I've lost track of that, but yeah, I don't keep a good memory of that. You probably remember it a bit better, Damien.
I remember the result and I remember how well I thought we played.
Yeah. What did you make of
But
Bournemouth that day? Go on, go on.
I'm
Give
not
me.
going to say it on here because I want some of your fans to come and like me. So I'm going to be nice.
No, fair enough. Fair enough, mate. To be honest, getting beat by Brighton is, to be fair, nothing to be embarrassed about,
I
considering.
mean, not nowadays. Maybe back in a few years ago it would have been, but now, honestly, I could say hand on heart, and I'm going to say this live. I wouldn't be surprised if we put together good performances and won the Europa League.
Do you know
Even
what?
with the blip, I wouldn't be surprised.
It wouldn't shock me because I think that, of course, you're going to Marseille very, very
Hmm.
soon.
Yeah.
Um, and the other team in the group as well is Ajax.
Hmm.
So let's be honest, Brighton haven't been given an easy group, but
No,
get out of that group, and I think you're more than capable of doing that.
100%.
Then, I think it might even become a little bit more easier in the round of 32.
Yep.
So I think there is that possibility that that could well happen. I know the later stages are a bit more difficult because you're getting towards the final, but I think you've got such a good squad mentality. You've got Lewis Dunk to come back into the side as well.
Mhm.
And actually, quick question on that, because of course that third goal for AAK Athens, you know what I straight away thought as soon as that goal went in? If Lewis Dunk was there, that
Don't would
wouldn't
have
have
read it.
happened. Yeah,
Exactly. That's exactly what I said on the night. I mean, I'm not going to criticize any Brighton player because you know me. I'm not one of those type of football fans. I
mm,
believe you win as a team, you lose as a team.
yeah,
But I do feel that he would have read it better than Van Heck or Igor Julio. I think he was obviously, I'm not going to say the reason we lost the game was because he missed out, but he was a solid contributing factor to that.
yeah. And I think, the players, that did come in, they are young players,
Hmm.
and they players getting experience. And on the second biggest European competition, you know, is some achievement, A, for themselves, but B, for the football club as well.
Exactly.
I think it was just such a shame because there was times where Brighton could have won that game, and
There were
I
probably
was willing
moments
you
where we
on.
could have, wasn't there?
Yeah, honestly, mate, I was willing you on.
I mean, just touching on what you said there about them being young players, that was actually Igor Julio's debut for Brighton. And he had to make his debut in the Europa League group game because of the injury to Dunk. It's
Yeah,
not the ideal circumstance to make your debut for a club, is it?
well, no, that probably does bring me on to something else as well. And, something that's just come to mind. We've signed a lot of players here at Bournemouth. And
Hmm.
as you can tell, we've spent a lot of money. And I look at our bench now. I looked at our bench, you know, in our last outing against Chelsea, and I thought that bench is really, really strong. There's not a player on there that, you could say hasn't got experience, hasn't got the know how, and can't affect or turn around this game.
Hmm.
And with Brighton, there is, this quality first team, absolutely outstanding. But would you say that you've got that in exchange for strength in depth? So do you feel that maybe that's where you're lacking, or not so much strength in depth, but players who have got the talent, but they haven't, got the experience?
You see, that's a very good point you've just made there, the second point. I wouldn't say we lack strength in depth, to be honest. I would
Mm,
feel comfortable us putting out a second 11 for most games in the league or in the cup and still thinking that we could get something.
mm,
But those players haven't got the experience. Like, look at Seaman Adringa for an example. Quality player,
mm,
lacks the experience. Igor Julio from Fiorentina. Quality player, needs time to adapt to English football.
yeah.
It's those key little bits where games are won and lost.
But on the spin side of that as well, and to put it in a good way, once those players, have got that experience, they're only going to get better. They're all youngsters because that's what Brighton do. Yeah, of course, James Milner's there as well, but I think he's probably going to be an influence on the coaching field
Oh,
as
100% he will join the coaching team, won't he?
oh, he's honestly, he's a
Him,
player.
Lalana. I mean, we got Dahoud as well, haven't we, from Dortmund?
Yeah,
Not quite as old, but he's got the experience. He's been there. He's done it.
I think that Brighton could be very, very dangerous, you know, even more dangerous than what they are now in a couple of years' time, because these players will have, built up the experience, hopefully teams won't have come in for the top players, because that would be quite nice for you guys.
That'd be
And
nice once.
can you imagine, having this squad, and you think, they're all young, they're all real good quality, they can all play at the very, very highest level, can all compete in games against Manchester United and beat them. And
Mhm.
I know there's been a lot of talk about Ten Hag and all that, but I feel that what Brighton did during that match, was you just ran them off the park. You was much the
Exactly.
better team, and it's all well and good. Man United fans turning around and saying, "Oh yeah, Man United aren't particularly very good under Ten Hag," but Brighton were much the better team.
Exactly. I think even if that was a Sir Alex Ferguson Man United, we'd have given them a game.
Yeah,
And that's not being arrogant or anything. You understand what I'm saying. I'm not
yeah.
saying we'd have beaten a Sir Alex Man United, but we'd have certainly given them a hell of a game and said, right, you want to go? Let's go.
Here's another question for you as well. So, if, say, for example, it doesn't work out in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
firstly, two parts to this. Firstly, can you get there again? But
100%.
secondly, considering what you are doing at the moment, you're in fifth place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look head and shoulders above Man United, head and shoulders above Newcastle. The only team you've been beaten by is West Ham. You know, the promoted teams you smash. Well, Wolves and Luton, I should say. Wolves aren't the newly promoted, but those two you smashed 4-1. Could you even go one better and get into the Champions League? Because it's happened before. Teams have done it before. Could you break this philosophy as well of where teams in the past have said, well, in Europe, and there's a dip the following season?
Mm. I
Can
mean,
you
I'm
do
going to
this again?
break that question down a little bit.
Go on. It's a long-winded
Firstly,
one.
you said, can we get there again? 100%, I believe we could at least achieve Europa again this season.
Yeah.
100%. But on the flip side to that, I would also take Conference League if we finish third in the group. Because for a club like Brighton, even Conference League is a massive achievement.
Yeah.
To even be in Europe at any level is a surreal achievement, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yes.
But on your thing about the Champions League, do I believe we could make it? I don't think we're going to make it this year. That's my honest answer. But I believe if we keep this squad together with the right additions, then we will make it in a year or two.
And wow, what a climb that will be. Because I
Yep,
remember Brighton when they were leaving the Goldstone Ground, um, you know, and it was a case that wasn't didn't you finish 91st in the entire league table at that
yep.
point? I'm trying to think of who went down that season.
Hereford.
Hereford. There we go. So that would be an unbelievable achievement. And do you know what? I'd be absolutely delighted for you guys. I've got absolutely nothing against Brighton. I actually really like the club. So I've got my fingers crossed because I can't see us getting there. But
You never know. I couldn't see Brighton getting there a few years ago, could I?
no, that's true. That's true. When we spoke ages ago, it was a case of, yeah, it'd just be a dream, wouldn't it? But you are living that dream now.
I did say to you, didn't I, on the last time I was on, that if we got it, that would be a dream come true, and I didn't care about the results. I would
Mm.
like to point out that Damien that said the results didn't matter. He is a liar.
Yeah. The results do matter, especially when you're as good as Brighton. To be fair, if we got into Europe, though when we finished ninth those years back, and of course Jack Wilshere played in that team that got us to that level. If we got into Europe, with a group of players that like Steve Cook, fantastic player, Charlie
Yep.
Daniels, Simon Francis. Don't get me wrong, these are legends at this football club, but they're legends that started their careers with us in League One. In the case of Mark Pugh, League Two, and if those players had played in Europe, I would say give it a go. But if we get beat, so be it. But let's be honest, with what you've done,
Yeah.
you're going to be a bit disappointed if you go to Marseille and don't turn up.
I'll be more disappointed if they don't give a performance. I don't mind so much if we lose, as long as we give 100%. That's all you can ask. It's like people were criticizing some of the players after Thursday night, but like I said, you need to remember these players are human. They've just lost the biggest game of their career so far. They're going to be hurting too. They don't want to hear you getting on their back.
Yep, completely agree. Completely agree. And, that's something that really a lot of Bournemouth fans need to look at as well, because there's been a lot of dislike for certain players like Lloyd Kelly and even Gary O'Neill, who, of course, kept us safe. I just don't understand it. Just don't understand it. But I think it's come to the point where we need to predict this game. So,
Yep.
Damien, are you going for a 3-1 win or a 4-1 win? Because that seems to be the two most popular scorelines. Or are you going for something completely different?
Honestly,
Um,
I'm going to go for something a bit left field. I reckon it's going to be closer than a lot of people are thinking. I reckon it's going to be 2-1 Brighton.
but you still think Brighton are going to win it?
I've got to back my boys, haven't I?
Well, yeah, exactly. I didn't expect anything but. Didn't expect anything but. Oh, this, to be honest, I thought that I did have a feeling before I actually spoke to you today. I thought Brighton are going to rest quite a few players, and you've turned around and completely quashed that theory, because I don't think you will. Um, I would like to think, because at the Amex last season, we did put up quite a good shout ourselves. We was only beaten
Mm-hmm.
1-0,
You
and
did sit with 10 behind the ball for most of the game, though.
and we went mega defensive, in the last
Oh,
five
there we go.
minutes, and that's where we conceded the goal. So I think that one, even though I've just turned around and said, the fans need to really been, a bit nicer to Gary O'Neill. That one was on Gary O'Neill,
Yeah, it was.
100%. It was on Gary O'Neill. But considering what we did last time, I'm hoping we can get a point. Do I think we'll get 3 points from Brighton? I don't think so, but I'd be delighted. Be delighted if we did. But yeah, I'm going to go for a point. I'm not going to bet against my own team, but I'm not going
It's
to go
difficult, yeah.
daft and turn around and say, oh, yeah, we'll get 3 points from Brighton. We'll win 3-0, because I can't see it happening. But happy with a point to take into a game against Arsenal. It doesn't get any easier. We've got probably the worst start that we possibly could do. But 3 points out of that isn't too bad.
It's not the worst, is it?
No,
I mean,
no.
we've got a break from league action. We've got a midweek trip to Chelsea after this.
Oh, have you?
For the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we've got Stoke, so um, yeah.
Winnable.
To be honest, we should get through it. I hope we get through it, but at the same time, the Premier League is our priority.
Exactly.
And then after the Arsenal game, in the Premier League, we've got 3 winnable games. We got, of course, Everton away from home. Let's be honest, Everton are rubbish. And
Mm-hmm.
then we've got Wolves and Burnley,
Mm-hmm.
and both of them don't
All
really
winnable.
particularly. Yeah, exactly. So I would say that even if we don't get 3 points out of either Brighton or Arsenal, we're not in bad shape as long as we can get a point here or there. Get a
Exactly.
point from Arsenal. Be an amazing result. But we need to then beat Everton. Everton especially.
Mm-hmm.
Everton especially, because everybody's beating them.
You've
And they're
got to beat
rubbish.
everyone around you. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. The question is are those teams going to be around us? Where are we? Where's the plan? Because I think the plan is probably going to be around 13th place this season.
Mhm.
And I would say the teams that will be around us, I think Crystal Palace. I did think Brentford would have a little bit of a drop off, but to be honest, they look fairly
They look
decent as
dangerous.
well. Yeah, they look decent side. Who's going to be around us? You know, I said Palace, I said Forest, but both of them have had decent starts. So I'm really not sure. I'm really, really not sure how it's going to pan out. Are we saying that Man United and Chelsea are the teams going to be around us at the end of the season?
Possibly. I mean,
well,
we're open to be around City and Arsenal, aren't we?
well, exactly. Who would have said that when you was battling out against Hereford?
Exactly.
Damien, honestly, it's an absolute pleasure as always to have
And
you
you,
on the
mate.
show. And we were saying actually before we come on, do you know what? I absolutely love that Brighton shirt. And of course, we used to have a black and green number all those
Yeah,
years ago. Um, so I'm quite jealous of that shirt, but I'm quite pleased that we've got this one as well because
that's quite a
this,
nice little number, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, it's a lot of appreciation for each other's, you know, away shirts, or in our case, the third shirt. Um,
Yeah.
just lovely shirts. But yeah, mate, honestly, it's absolute pleasure as always,
And
and
you, mate.
no
Pleasure to be here.
doubt we will catch up later on in the season.
Of course we will.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks so much for your time, Damien.
Thanks, mate. No problem.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us on this show. Please remember to hit the like, the subscribe, the bell button below to be alerted to any videos we do here at Up the Cherries in all departments. Please do also check out our recent interviews. We did have Michael Greco on the show, of course, Beppe DeMarco. He did play with a certain Diego Maradona, believe it or not. Beppe to Diego, Diego back to Beppe. You couldn't make it up, could you, really? But it did happen. We've also had interviews with Chris Akabusi recently, plus lots more. We've had Joe Roach as well on the show. So do check out all those videos. Do check out my adventures abroad. The India part is coming very soon. Trust me, it will be here and with you soon. But until the next show, up the cherries, and we'll see you in the next one.